United Methodist Church for coming up and serving ice cream. It's really good. I had one earlier. I want to thank all of you for coming. We're trying to copy this after Rushville. They've been having music in the park for the last 2 or 3 years. And I worried we could have music in the park if we could get it free. And the group that you had here in June from the Baptist Church, from the First United Methodist Church, was free. And they were great. And we had a great crowd, and it rained all day that day. And tonight we have the Crossroads Brass Band. And believe it or not, they're headquartered pretty much in Franklin, Indiana, but they're willing to come over here and do this for us free. They have a couple of local participants. So I want you to give them all a big hand for these fellows. In August, we're going to have a group. They played 5 years down at Renfro Valley. It's a gospel group and a bluegrass group, very professional. They will be here, and I'll have the date, and we'll be talking about it. We'll be advertising. That'll be our last music in the park for this summer. But thank you so much, and I introduce to you the Crossroads Brass Band.
So listen, what a nice crowd there is tonight, and what a nice evening to play. We'll settle in and get used to the acoustics here in a moment. We've never played in this exact place, and it's always different. In selecting the opener, I have lots of choices. We could come out and play a march and get your attention right away, or we could play something fanfare-ish and all that. And sometimes, every now and then, I like to start with something that kind of sneaks up on you. And then, of course, you recognize the melody as America the Beautiful. This particular arrangement was done by our music director, Paul Borg. I'm the managing director. I founded the group and gave myself that title with the intention of having a music director later on after I had been director a couple of years. Well, Paul was here with us last June when we played over in the building across the way. And how many of you were here for that concert? We had a great time. If you remember, he's got quite a spiel and a pretty good patter about it. Well, Paul just recently had cardiac surgery, so he's sort of on the sidelines, and I'm back on the podium, which I love. Anyway, Paul arranged this piece for us, specifically for brass band. You'll notice there are no woodwind instruments in this group. There are no piccolos and no flutes and clarinets or saxes. We do welcome percussion. They sneak in by virtue. They play brass cymbals. We let them know. Actually, they play a very important part. They just don't keep the rhythm. So let's move on. We promised some Beatles music for you tonight, and so we're going to move on to one of those. Started doing Paul had done a lot of research, and I've done some research. The internet's great. Where the heck was that when I was teaching? It's wonderful. Turns out that most of the Beatles tunes that you and I and most of us recognize were done in the 60s. And they're all credited to Lennon and McCartney, John Lennon and Paul McCartney. But oddly enough, I found out today that most of them were written by Paul McCartney. And John Lennon was just there to take credit for them, which is, I thought, of course, he was a major player in the group and probably helped with a lot of the arrangements, but Paul did most of the work. So these pieces, what is also interesting to me, not two of them are alike. Everything we've got to play from them are different. The first one we're going to do is Lady Bernada, and this was a single that came out in 1968.
Thank you.
We go to contests, we compete. We've been doing that now about 2 years. And had we had that noise in the background of the mute falling, there would have been a penalty. We struggle to get good points, and that would have been hurtful. Did anybody notice there's one guy in the band playing some pretty high cornet music? Did you happen to notice that? Paul, would you? That little horn is called an E-flat soprano cornet, and it plays higher than the typical B-flat cornet. Typical B-flat cornet reads a note and actually sounds a step lower. This little guy reads a note and sounds a minor third higher. And so anything that might have been assigned to a flute or a piccolo, Paul gets to do that. And also, if you know the Beatles music, they use the piccolo trumpet quite a lot, and this sort of takes that role, so Paul handles that. That's a very difficult instrument to handle. He's done a great job. The next tune really lets the soprano cornet shine. This is a Norwegian march. It's kind of a non-march, called Valdres March. It was written way back at the turn of the last century, and it's based on an old Norwegian cattle call, believe it or not, thanks to the internet. This is Valdres March. It just occurred to me a few minutes ago that I have programmed those two numbers back to back, so maybe I won't do that again. If you'd like to hear that again, we're going to be probably playing a similar program on August 29th at the second annual Greenwood Community Band Festival at Serena Park Square in Greenwood. It's an all-day or most of the day affair. There will be 8 or 9 community bands from central Indiana joining the Greenwood Band, which some of us are members. And Bending River, that was an old brass band I played in. Crossroads Brass Band will be opening the program sometime around 10 or 11 in the morning. Come on over and hear us again. We'll have a few more Beatles tunes and repeat a few of the better ones we have tonight. The other thing I promised we would play, or Laurie promised we would play, was another arrangement that Paul Bork made up. Probably today's best known, maybe best loved musical theater or musical play. It's not a musical comedy by any stretch, and that's Les Miserables. Paul took a decent high school band arrangement of it and rearranged it for brass band. And it's a difficult job. You just don't transfer music from here and there. You've got to pick the voices carefully. Let me get the phone. Doesn't have all of the melodies from the musical. If you've seen either the movie or the play, it opens with at the end of the day, I dreamed a dream, master of the house, which is sort of a showstopper by any stretch. The melody on my own, and then it ends with the anthem, which has become an anthem, I think, and may become more popular as an American anthem. Do you hear the people sing? How many of you seen the play? If you remember in the play at the end of Do You Hear the People Sing, they're waving the French flag behind them. I'm picturing it in Greenwood when we play it. We're going to do something with something back there. It won't be the French flag. We'll find something to do. We don't have that with us tonight. So here's Paul Bork's arrangement of come over to the Greenwood Festival, we'll play it again, okay? We'll have something in the background. As they would say on Monty Python, we're now for something completely different. And I mean, in the brass band, the instruments are all what we call conical bore. The instrument starts out at one diameter, the tubing does, at the mouthpiece, and grows gradually all the way through the bell. So that all contributes to a very warm sound. That and the fact that instruments typically are shorter and have a lot more curlicues in them, and that also adds for a warmer sound. The one exception is the trombone, and if you look at the trombone, that is pretty much the same diameter all the way through. It gets a brighter, sharper sound, and it gives more color to the band, and the composers and arrangers have another layer of sounds that they can put in there. Plus, they're the only ones that can do among other things. But they got to use, so they can do things the other instruments can't do, so the colors are used a lot by the arrangers. This is an arrangement of When I'm 64, also written by Paul. It was on the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album in 1967. Actually, it was a single in 64 and then went on the album in 67. It was actually when he was quite young, but he was kind of speculating as to what life would be like when he was 64, because a friend of his was turning 64. So this is Paul's speculation of what life would be like when he was 64 and later. some bizarre reason, brass bands often have a hard time finding good trombone players, and we're very fortunate in having the three. Steve Laskowski back there playing the last chair. He plays a bass trombone, which can go lower than the tenor trombone. And they make even smaller trombones yet. They make alto trombones and slide trumpets and things like that. But those are the basic trombone section. I have a good friend who was a brass bander, and he did play with the Boston Symphony. And he took great pride in saying he played last chair trombone in the Boston Symphony. He was the bass trombone player. He's now retired. But we're going to do another one that's pretty wild, and it gets a little longish. I hope we don't. I doubt we'll put you to sleep. We might stress you a little bit. This is another 1960s vintage from an album called Rubber Soul. And I have to bear in mind, or bear my soul to you, that I didn't really know this music when I was in college because I went to the University of Wyoming. I grew up there and I went to the university. And if it didn't come in on the 4 o'clock stage, we didn't know about it. So we didn't know about the Beatles. The nearest radio station was Oklahoma City. This Norwegian Wood was written in 1965 and influenced by a classical Indian raga. You know what a raga is? That's an Indian music that's composed, or it's passed down by memorization, from player to player to player. They play it on sitar and other Asian instruments. If you remember the Beatles' history at all, this is about the time they started dabbling in Asian music and other kinds of music, and this has got apparently influences from the ragas. I was in India a couple of times. I didn't hear Norwegian Wood while I was there. Did see a brass band, but nothing like we have here. Anyway, this is Norwegian Wood. It's really kind of interesting. Hope you enjoy it. I usually play this instrument over here, and I'm telling you, this is a tough chart, as they say in the business. It's kind of like Stan Kenton meets Ravi Shankar. You know, it's got a very Kentonish sound about it, but you hear those rhythms are very, very reminiscent of the ragas from India. It's simple to play, especially with that constant, almost hypnotic melody going in there. We're going to program this for Greenwood as well, and we're going to continue to work on it. This is by no means perfect. It's tough, but I think the band did quite well, and I want to really congratulate them on it. One of my jobs is to entertain you briefly while the lips cool down. Unlike an orchestra, where the strings carry the bulk of the load, and the brass players generally count measures forever, or in a wind band where the woodwinds tend to carry a lot of the load and the brass players count measures forever or don't get a whole lot to do. Everybody in this band is pretty much playing all the time, and the lips do get rather tired. And by the time we do a solid 2-hour rehearsal or a 1-hour concert, we're pretty well burned out. So that's why I'm doing maybe more talking than my wife would let me do. She says I talk too much. There is a method. It was suggested the other day by one of our tuba players, who will remain unnamed, that it maybe would be appropriate that we change the state song for Indiana, at least temporarily. So we're going to play this next little tune, and I'll tell you a little more about it after you guess what we're doing, okay? all like to play little trivia games with the audience. Forewarn you, I am not authorized to give away a card, okay? All right, the name of the song was Singing in the Rain, from the movie of Singing in the Rain. Okay. Tough one. Starring Gene Kelly, Debbie Reynolds. One more I'm not hearing. How old was Debbie Reynolds? 19. She was dancing with two of the finest hoofers of her time, and she was 19 years old. They're dead. She's still alive. So. Okay. Singing in the Rain was judged by the AFI, the American Film Institute, at least in their latest survey. That may change now. Singing in the Rain was the #1 musical of all time, an MGM musical. And that may have changed, but and the tune was rated the number 5 greatest of all time. Probably, I mean, if you've seen the movie, and how can you watch TV and not see it? It's on there all the time. The plot's a little hokey, but the dancing's incredible and the music is just very memorable. One more. Which company used that theme when it became public domain for a commercial? Dancing Elephant, General Electric. You don't remember the appliances, but you might remember the elephant. Most of this music's from the same publisher. We found a publisher in Switzerland, of all places. Very little of this stuff's published in the U.S. because brass bands are not very big here yet. Growing, but not very big. Totally new change of pace. Yesterday. before I really got to digging into it, I was certain that John Lennon had written that tune. I always considered him the more morose and I don't know, quieter of the Beatles, but Paul wrote that one too. So who knew? We do all know now. Speaking of Paul Blart taught some of our audience over last June about a very important Italian word, ancora, which means again. So he wanted you all to remember that word, ancora. And you're supposed to say, cheering loudly after our next tune, ancora. Let's see if his lessons stick. He was shameless when it came to teasing an audience. So Paul will be back with us hopefully by our concert in August. He's recovering quite well, I hope. Hey Jude is also Paul McCartney's work. It originally started out as Hey Jules, Jules, and it was sold 8 million as a single. And then later came out in an album under the title, and it was rated the 10th best of all of their songs. This was 1968, so all of these happened in the decade of the 60s. After that, they really got into some pretty wild stuff, and then eventually, of course, broke up. So here's Hey Jude, and don't forget the lesson today, okay? I stand corrected. We had Yellow Submarine in here, and we just said somebody said they don't have anywhere to go. They can stay here and listen to another tune. So we're going to play Hey Jude, then we'll do Yellow Sub, and then we'll see where we go from there. Yeah. You almost have to do Yellow Submarine because that and Lonely Hearts Club Band were probably two of their best known and finest works. So here's Hey Jude. It's more of an anthem kind of thing, but we'll do that. But you feel free to do this kind of number when you get to that part. I think you can see why that was certainly rated one of their best. It really gets you stirred. And then, you know, if you keep it going and going and going, and you got a big crowd in a huge big arena, it gets, I've never done that, but I'll bet it's pretty loud. All right, now Yellow Submarine, and this is just a nutty song. It's just really lots of fun. So hang on and we'll go underwater. really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for the hint. I really want to take a moment. This organization was first founded in 2012 when 8 of us met at Edinburgh High School. I had moved to the Indianapolis area from the Evansville area where I played in a brass band for about, I don't know, 15, 20 years. That is now a regularly competing brass band. They're a lower section community band like we are, but they've been competing at the national championship every year except one since about 2007. And we moved up here and there was no brass band, and I just didn't last very long, so I thought, well, I'll round one up and we organized. There are several of us who are still founding members. That would be Steve on bass trombone, Artie on piano. That's a pretty high mortality rate, isn't it? Well, what really happened, we had a young man who was the band director at Edinburgh High School, and he had grown up in the brass band world in Ohio, which at the time is pretty much the hotbed of brass banding in the U.S., if there is such a place, primarily because of Ohio State University, which just graduates hundreds of brass players every year, and they have to have some place to play. And then he got a better job down in southern Indiana and took the band room key with him. So we were out on the street and we were invited to come over to Franklin College by a friend of ours. And so we've been there as a resident ensemble. We're now in visiting ensemble because our rehearsal hall is now Franklin Middle School in Franklin. And the town has just been very gracious. So we call Franklin our home, but we have members from all over this part of the country. In fact, I think we only have one Franklinite. Right, John? Yep. Yeah, that's John. The rest of us are all over the place. We even have a ringer today. This young lady sitting right here, Brianna Engelbert. I did not make that up. That's her last name. She's a euphonium major. That's what she plays. She plays a what? A euphonium, as I do. Everybody else who wants to play a horn wants to play a euphonium, we always say. She's a euphonium major master's candidate at IU, and she's got an audition coming up for one of the Army bands. So let's wish her a good luck. She braved NDOT's road construction on Highway 37 to get up here, so she really deserves it. So we're going to thank you for our last number. Every band should play a good American march, and we're going to do that. We're not going to play Sousa, however. We're going to play a piece that Sousa rated, and he had his list, March, the third best march. His, of course, being the first two, as far as his and one of his others. But this is the third best, written by Bagley way back in 1906. And this, if you listen very carefully, you will hear the national anthem hidden in this melody. This is March National Anthem. Thank you again so much. It's been a very nice evening. We've really enjoyed playing with you. Just take 1 minute and really thank this group of very, very wonderful friends. I would not have a brass band to play in or conduct if it weren't for them, and I am very grateful. It is an important part to me. And we're going to continue to grow and improve, and one of these days we're going to go to that championship and bring home a big trophy.